And welcome into Gator Bytes on the 1010XL.com podcast network, also being simulcast on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Today's Gator podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialist. They're Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's. Along with Southeast Orthopedic Specialist, Denny Thompson, tell us about the good folks at George Moore Chevrolet.
We need to work on this transition.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable with the way you transition.
I thought it was very professional. I thought it sounded sharp and
it kind of
crisp.
leaves me like in a weird commercial type spot. I don't know.
Oh, well, you got to be a good pitch man. Actually, I did see a TV commercial with George Moore Chevrolet and Justin Moore and the crew over there, so I know they're getting after it over there.
Yeah. But you understand what I'm saying with this, Graham? Like, I feel like we
Denny,
need to
I'm
work
push
this.
back on you here.
Okay.
I think Hack has given you some great lobs, actually.
That was an alley-oop.
I
That
think-
should have been
I
a
think that was a
slam
good one.
dunk.
But see,
Yeah.
it feels like
Denny, sometimes you
then,
just got to grab
but
the
then it
orange
feels
and
like
just
I got to
throw
do
it
this whole
down.
commercial thing, and I don't do that well. And it's like, y'all know what a car dealership is. I'm telling you, these are good dudes. Y'all would make my life a lot easier if you just go out there and buy a bunch of cars.
That's simple.
Yeah, I mean,
straightforward and to the point.
Because we're not talking about like food. There's not difference in the Chevys. It's like these are good dudes, and it's where I buy my cars. You should buy your cars there.
You want good
And
people
you'll
to
have
take
a good experience, and you'll have a great car in your hands.
Yeah, you want good people to take care of you, and they certainly do that there at George Moore Chevrolet. All right, there's a cocktail party in town. You and I
go
have
buy a truck to take to the cocktail party to tailgate. There we go.
RV City
See,
in
now
full
we're here.
force.
If there's
Yeah.
still
now we've
trucks on
arrived.
the lot at George Moore tomorrow, we have failed.
All right, we haven't talked since the win over South Carolina. We took a bye week last week. You took a California trip. I was doing a staycation. But the Gators come in at 5-2, and I think Denny, look, George is the overwhelming favorite. We'll get to that in a moment. But if you would have told Gator fans on August 30th, hey, you're going to be 5-2 going into Georgia, I think most Gator fans, realistic Gator fans, would have taken that.
No doubt. Does this not feel like the longest season, though? Because have we not had this conversation about 6 times in 7 games?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I think that's what makes it feel a little bit, I don't know, feels like a clunky 5-2 to me. Doesn't feel like a pleasantly surprised 5-2.
Well, the bad part is the 2 have been bad. Utah and Kentucky were bad.
Yeah. And you know,
And Tennessee was
but
great,
again,
and South Carolina comeback was
there
great.
you go. Like, it go back to what you led with of before the season. If we'd have said, hey, you lose to Utah, you lose to Kentucky, but you beat Tennessee and you beat South Carolina, and you, like, I don't know, maybe some people would have taken that.
I do think they would have flipped Tennessee and Kentucky. I think most people would have thought you lose to Tennessee, you beat Kentucky.
No doubt. That's what I'm saying.
But
Like,
nevertheless, it is 5-2, regardless of
that's
how
what I'm
you
saying.
got
I
there.
think when you beat Tennessee, that was one you didn't expect before
Right.
the season, but for some reason the 5-2, like we were out of town and something came across, I think it's my son's phone, about Florida controls their own destiny, and I'm like, holy cow, they do. Now so do 3 other teams, but they legit do, and it doesn't feel like we have talked about a 5-2 team. It feels like we have talked about a 2-5 team all year.
Graham Mertz got unfairly, maybe annihilated is too strong, but there was not a lot of happiness about Graham Mertz being the starting quarterback at Florida coming into the year. He has absolutely surpassed expectations, right?
Oh yeah. No doubt. I think I said this a couple weeks ago. I remember whenever the whole Graham Mertz thing was taking place, and we were, pretty good and into Anthony Richardson's pro day stuff. So I was still talking to Florida quite a bit. And I remember how excited they were. Like, it was legit. It was, because I talked to these guys a lot. So it's not like they're faking it with me, right? They were legit excited about Graham Mertz. And you kind of see why. I mean, the guy has a ton of tools that I don't know that like a rating service or something like that picks up on. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of intangibles there. He's tough as nails. He doesn't seem to be bothered by physical pressure, that's a tough thing to do. I mean, it is a really tough thing to sit back there, stare down as a 240-pound man is running as fast as he can trying to kill you, and wait for a receiver to get out of a break.
You know what's interesting? Look, you're the quarterback guy, so you obviously can speak to this much more intelligently than I can. When I see Graham Mertz at Wisconsin, did I watch a lot of his games at Wisconsin? No. I've seen most of his stuff on highlight films and YouTube, to be honest. he looks like a different guy now than he was at Wisconsin. He looks like a different player from the leadership. You mentioned the toughness, speaking up to teammates. I guess that goes in with leadership. How does that happen? A guy starts 32 games at a Big Ten school, but it's like he's a completely different guy now in Gainesville.
Well, I think a couple things. That's a great question, by the way. And we talk to our guys about this all the time. There's this thing called development, right? Like as a human being that we, for some reason, don't allow 18-year-old kids when they sign at college and 21-year-old men when they go to the NFL. We don't allow development. Like we need results right now. And so I think the byproduct of this transfer portal, I think you'll see a lot of Graham Mertz because you go somewhere, you're thrown into a fire. Maybe you're not even sure who you are at 18 years old, your leadership style or how you want to play or anything like that, or you're not even that interested in something like mechanics. And we see this all the time. But 2 years in, you realize, dang, these guys are really good. I really need to dial in and learn more about mechanics and about leadership. I need to find what I just saw that last senior leave with, right? But then you got the issue of now you're in the same place and they know you as a certain player, certain person, all that kind of stuff. And so now that change of scenery helps with that so much. Because now you go into a new place that nobody knows you. They don't know the times that you've missed, and I don't know if Graham Mertz ever missed a workout, but the times that you've missed a workout and all the reasons you've told yourself why you can't lead, right? This new place don't know that. You get a clean slate, a fresh start, and with usually optimism. Right. And so I think it allows people, much like an adult changing a job or moving cities, it allows people to kind of redefine in a good way who they have become and get away from who they were.
You can know who the poster child for that is? Bo Nix.
We could name a ton of them, but you're right.
This year, DJ Uiagalelei.
DJ, Bo Nix, think about the Florida State guys, the defensive ends they've had the last couple of years. Like, I think there's a lot of these guys out there, and I think the transfer portal is giving people not just second chances, but sometimes you just get put into a rut in a situation and you need to get out of it.
Yeah.
We've all been there, right? And it just that fresh change of scenery and that fresh approach to coaching and all that kind of stuff, I just think it helps so much in a situation like Graham Mertz.
All right, so coming into the year, to me, and maybe I was off base, I'm curious your thoughts. To me, 2023 was about three things. Improvement as the year went on, getting the young guys some experience, and most importantly, and I do mean most importantly, keeping that 2024 recruiting class intact. We're 7 games in. Have they shown improvement? Check. Have they got young guys experience? Check. And not only, Denny, to this point, have they kept that recruiting class intact, they just added a 5-star from Daytona Beach Mainland and L.J. McCray to solidify them as one of the 3 best recruiting classes in the country for 2024. So from that standpoint, the criteria that at least I had personally for them coming into the year, to me it's a success as we sit here on the 26th day of October.
What do you have, 5 games left, 4 games left?
5 games left. And it's a hard slate.
It's a hard slate. I agree with everything you just said. I think that this Georgia game, and I know we're going to get into the details of it, but just to piggyback off what you're saying, I think this thing is so big for Florida. It is massive for Florida. And I'm not saying like Florida has to go out and win big. I'm saying you have put yourself into a situation recruiting-wise where you are now competing with Alabama and Georgia for guys, right? And you're right there with them.
You beat Georgia for a couple of them.
That's right. And all you got to show right now, the only thing you got to show is that we have hit the peak of this separation period between Georgia and Florida, and things are coming back down to normal. Things are getting closer again. And if you give young guys that with the way that they're recruiting, then you may even be able to get another 1 or 2, right? And you're probably going to lose 1 or 2. Everybody does as the year goes on. But we don't know the 5 or 6 that they may be in play for right now. And now all of a sudden, if you go toe-to-toe with Georgia and Billy Napier and his staff continue to get the confidence on the recruiting trail, help's on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like help is there. And then, the thing that I think we all need to see is what does a Billy Napier team that is uber talented look like? And to be fair to him, we haven't seen that, right? And to be fair to us, we haven't seen him operate with that either. So I think that's the uncertainty that's left. But I agree with you. I think most questions about where Florida football is and headed have been answered.
Well, and look, I don't follow it near as much as I used to. I follow it still a little bit when it comes to Florida, but I do follow the guys that follow it, 24/7, Rivals, etc. And they will tell you right now that Florida has the best front seven class in the country.
Oh, no doubt.
For the class of
Yeah,
2024.
no doubt.
They have got monsters at linebacker, defensive end, and defensive tackle coming to Gainesville. And L.J. McCray out of Mainland is one of those monsters. So recruiting-wise, it's very good right now.
Can I give you a scenario here, too, in recruiting that I don't think a lot of people talk about with NIL? Right now, there's a whole host of people that have committed to schools but are kind of waiting to see what happens NIL package-wise.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to get? What's going to happen? Well, there's a whole host of other schools calling those people saying, hey, they signed this person, they gave him X amount per month, and they're opening the eyes of these people, right? And so NIL is, I think, in some ways going to reopen recruiting in that November, December timeframe before early signing day when kind of the Jaden Rashada thing last year, right? When all of a sudden it's time and we don't – this other school's offering me $30,000 more a month than what you're offering me, right? And it's not even – I don't want to go there, but, man, that pisses me off that somebody else values me more than you value me when I've been committed to you, right? So there's those opportunities coming up with those things too, y'all. This NIL and this recruiting stuff's wild. And I don't know that it's bad. I don't know that it's a bad wild. It is just wild, and everybody is trying to figure this thing out on the fly.
And, again, that calendar has kept turning. Signing day, the December signing day is inside of 2 months. You know, we talk about can Florida get –
is it mid-December?
I think it's before Christmas.
Yeah.
You know, so can Florida hang on to this class? Well, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here, man. Some of these guys are going to be putting ink to paper, most of them in 6 or 7 weeks. And like I said, you just got that 5-star from Mainland to add to the class. Today's Gator Bytes podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. They're Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care for the highest quality. You should go to Southeast Orthopedic Specialists for any orthopedic injury or concern. Their website is se-ortho.com. And as always, you can listen for Southeast Orthopedic Specialist, the good Dr. Kevin Murphy, on Thursday mornings in the 7 o'clock hour with Jeff and Dan right here on 1010XL for his weekly analysis of injuries in sports. And if you need a car,
George Moore, Atlantic Boulevard, go.
There you go. Simple to the point. All right. Weirdest
service too.
Yes,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Weirdest podcast of the year for you, and it has been for a while, but I think this might be the weirdest podcast you've ever done with me because, as everybody knows, 6 points quarterback, your business.
We didn't even have to go here. We could have just left this out.
I think
about the Gators.
People know. I mean, and it's the elephant in the room.
Is it, though?
You've trained Carson Beck for a long time. Carson Beck, dare I say, is one of your best pupils at 6 points. And now he returns to Jacksonville, where he won a state title at Mandarin as the quarterback of the Georgia Bulldogs. So your thoughts going into the cocktail party on Saturday about Florida playing against a guy that you've trained now for years?
I actually haven't thought about it much. Angie and I, my wife, we talked about it yesterday because she grew up a Georgia fan. Her family, both of her parents went to Georgia. They're from Athens. And so she talked about just how cool it is. Because Carson's like, we train a lot of guys, but then there's a couple handful of guys that are core, like we've had
a guy named Brock Purdy might be one of them.
No, not even Brock. No, I'm saying like core, they've been with us since they were
for a long
super
time.
young.
Anthony was one of those guys.
Anthony's one of those guys. Like
Carson and Anthony are great. If I'm 6 points not telling you how to do your business, might put Brock Purdy on a couple of posters.
Our business is fine, man. This is more relationships for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this Carson thing is this is like my son. This is the closest thing you can get to that. And
he committed on your radio show to Georgia.
He did, and
that went over really well. I
decommitted with Saban while we were sitting in a Bono's. We just have history, right? And that's my guy, and I'm always going to take up for him. I'm always going to protect him. I go up to Athens almost every week to see him. So Angie and I were talking about just how cool it is that her team that she grew up pulling for, and I think it's the first Jacksonville quarterback that's ever started for Georgia.
I can't think of one.
I can't think of one. Is playing in his home stadium, but I don't think that where Carson's at right now that he's even processing that. Carson he's shut everything down. Like you won't see a ton of NIL stuff out of Carson right now. You won't see hardly any. He has shut it down to just I don't want to talk to people. I just want a football and school. And so I don't even know that. I think most of his opponents right now, this isn't like he's committed to Florida for baseball. That's the other thing. He grew up a Florida fan. I don't even think he's thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helps that this is his, fourth one?
Yeah, first one he's obviously starting, but yeah.
Right, but he's done the whole come over the bridge thing. He's done the whole, see my family thing at the hotel the night before. So I think in a lot of ways, this isn't really his first one. And I'm sure he wants to do well in his hometown. But, for me, man, I just want to see that. I just want to see Carson do well. You can look at this one or two ways. I can't win or I can't lose. I can't lose in this. That's
right.
the way I'm going to look at it.
I mean, it's a very cool story. For him to wait his time in Athens, it would have been very easy to enter the portal and go start somewhere else. But to wait there 3 years and then finally get his opportunity, and he's taken it and run with it. They're 7-0. They're number one in the country. Now his security blanket is gone. Right. Brock Bowers is gone. He's out of this game. What does that do to Carson and that Georgia offense?
We'll see. I mean, I listen, you can't do anything about injuries. It happens. And so when it happens, you got to kind of reframe the way that you position, where you're at. And the way we've reframed this is this is a huge opportunity for Carson. Because I believe Carson to be the kind of player that can take over any game. But as long as you got Brock Bowers, there's going to be that Beck Bowers took over the game, which is fine, which is all right. But now that's not there. So, Carson, can you do this? Mm-hmm. Now is your chance to cement yourself. We're not even talking about draft status. We're talking about in just the order of college football quarterbacks and what you mean to their team and possible, where are you at in December? Are you in New York in December, either this year or next year, whatever? This is you've got a stretch here of games that are pretty solid. That it's going to be 3:30 game after 3:30 game after 3:30 game because you're the number one team in the country. It's a huge opportunity for him.
2021, I thought Georgia was unbeatable coming into this game. They were. Ultimately, they did lose one game that year, but they ultimately won the title. Last year, thought they were unbeatable, and they were. They went undefeated, won the title. Georgia this year is not Georgia of the last 2 years. Auburn was beating them in the fourth quarter. Vanderbilt was right there with them late in the third, and South Carolina was beating them by 10 at halftime. Look, Georgia's number one, well-deserved. I'm not breaking any news here. I'm picking Georgia to win. But I think it is absolutely realistic for Gator fans to expect Florida to be in this game in the second half because Auburn's awful. They are awful. And they were right there with them in the fourth quarter. We know how Vanderbilt is, and Vanderbilt was right there. South Carolina's won 2 games, and South Carolina was beating them by 10. I mean, Georgia finds ways to win, but clearly, Denny, at least to this point, it does not appear to be an unbeatable Georgia team.
No, I've watched every single snap of Georgia football this year. Well, that's not true. I haven't watched the ones when Carson comes out the game, but I've watched every single first-team snap of when Georgia comes in. The way you beat Georgia is you have to have big plays. Right, because what you're not, and if you go and look at those games you just mentioned, that's what happened. Vandy hit a little slant route, housed it. Spencer Rattler started out 10 of 10 or something like that. So, I think Auburn hit a couple big runs. It's really hard to drive down the field because that's what they want you to do. They may even play off of you a little bit to just give you that little 5-yard hitch a couple times, and then they're going to break on it. Right, so Georgia's one of those teams where Kirby Smart is so smart, and Will Muschamp are so smart defensively, and they have such a good instinct that offensively your players have to be locked in every single play. Because just because they're giving you the same look they gave you the last time you went to that formation doesn't mean that post-snap they're going to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that's NFL-type stuff, right? Most college teams don't do this. They do this. They bait you into things. They bait you into stupid turnovers. But to your point, they don't seem as dominant as what they've seen the last couple of years, although I will say I feel like that has changed the last couple of games. Even the Vandy thing, that's Nashville. It happens to everybody. They seem to have this switch that when they flip it on, they look very similar.
Yeah, they were dominant against Kentucky.
Well, even South Carolina the second half.
Yeah.
It was almost like they went into halftime. They were like, okay, well, that was cute. And South Carolina could do nothing. Absolutely nothing. Georgia could do whatever. Same with Auburn the second half. So I don't know if they found that. You hope that they haven't flipped that switch permanently, but it's still there, and they can. But they are definitely more gettable than what they've been the last couple of years.
I know it's a Gator podcast, but quickly, this is a game we may see down the road. Am I crazy to think that if they played right now, Florida State, Georgia, I would pick Florida State to win that game? Your thoughts?
I disagree.
Yeah, I disagree too. I just what Georgia can do to you if they want to defensively, like what they did to Tennessee last year. Y'all, I was at that game, and I was sitting at a level where I could see everything. That was just a beatdown.
Yeah, but again, as great as Hendon Hooker was last year, Jordan Travis and that offense.
Listen, I get it, and we're getting off. But my point is, there's very few people that if Georgia wants to just go man free and just lock your ass down, they can.
Yeah,
there's some risk in doing that, which is why they don't do it all the time.
Do
but
I
they
have
can.
Brock Bowers for Georgia or not? When they play?
I don't know. We'll see. That game would be in 3 months.
It'd be a
2.5
game.
months.
But the
point is, Florida sees both of them. Florida, you want to talk about fly
you
in
only
the
win
ointment.
one game. Which one would you rather win?
Oh, I'd rather beat Florida State, without question.
I agree with that.
This goes in, and I've had this conversation for years. This is an age thing, and I'm actually surprised, Graham, that you would. To me, well, actually, no, I checked that. I think Florida fans 40 years and younger, Florida State's the biggest rival because we're not old enough to appreciate Herschel Walker and Lindsey Scott and Buck Bellew and all the beatings that Georgia gave them in the 70s and 80s. I think if you're a Gator fan 40, 45 and up, Georgia is still your biggest rival. But Warwick Dunn in 93 ruined my life.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Childress in 2003, the swindle in the swamp when the referees gave Florida State the game. It's been 20 years, and I haven't gotten over it, right?
You need therapy.
I do. Keep on, I was born in Tallahassee, man. Now, I'm an objective broadcast journalist now, but I went to the Governor's Square Mall where they would not help me because I was wearing a Gator shirt when I was 9 years old.
I'm the same way about wins, and I'm the same exact way about stuff.
So, but the whole Georgia-Florida State thing is interesting, and you want to talk about a fly in the ointment or whatever you want to call it, the fact that Florida plays both of these teams in basically a month time span, Florida could have a real impact on what we see potentially in the college football playoff.
Well, I don't know how Florida responds defensively to those two teams. That's the one. Florida likes to blitz. Good luck blitzing Carson. And this isn't me talking.
He's been really good under pressure.
Historically good.
Again,
like
with
really good.
Brock Bowers. Right?
Okay.
But just his willingness to stand in the pocket.
Right.
And,
Again,
They do not win that Auburn game without Brock Bowers.
I agree with that.
And now you take him out.
Maybe not. Okay, but I'm just telling you, like, if they want to blitz, then they're going to have to deal with their playing into Carson's hand.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to blitz Florida State, then you better be ready to defend the fade because they got 6'7" receiver after 6'4" receiver after. Like, you know what I mean? So they're just different teams, and I don't know, is Florida good enough right now to say that my best is better than your best? So if you're good at beating the blitz, we're so good at blitzing you that we're going to continue to do it, and you're not going to beat us. When you get to that point as a program, that's when you've arrived. And are they there? No, I don't think so.
It's really interesting, though, for Napier and the staff, because I'll even lump Miami into this. Florida plays Georgia on Saturday. They play Florida State in a month, and they begin next year with Miami in September.
That's awesome, actually.
Over the next 10 months,
that's actually dope.
We're going to know where Florida is compared to their rivals.
Again, I think, Florida fans, I know you want to win this game. I know you want to win this game, and I know it means everything, and so I'm not trying to disillusion or I'm not trying to discount that. But I think what you have to have is there just has to be a clear moment of, wait a second, we're catching up with these guys.
Mm-hmm. That's why I go back to you can't get boat raced.
Right.
You can't get blown out.
And especially with the way you just phrased that, because now if all of a sudden hey, the tides have turned here and we are catching up. I don't think Kirby's going down. We're catching up to Kirby. We're chasing Kirby. We'll be there in a year or two. Like, we got help on the way. And then you do the same thing against Florida State, or you don't even do maybe win that game. I don't know. I don't think the Georgia
the swamp is going to be going
head.
Crazy.
No doubt. And then you got Miami to open it. Like that. I don't think you could line this up any better for opportunity for Billy Napier. Now, as a tall task, we're asking of him on Saturday.
You need to win one of them. You can't go 0-3 in those games.
Let's just worry about this one first.
Agreed.
Tall task on Saturday is winning. That's a huge task. It is even a tall task to physically look like you're catching up with Georgia. But if you can do that, man, like it sets up well for you.
Let's go over the SEC slate again. Before we do that, Southeast Orthopedic Specialists and George Moore Chevrolet. They bring you Gator Bytes, 1010XL.com, and the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. And we certainly thank both George Moore Chevrolet and Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. All right, we'll save Florida, Georgia for the end. We'll certainly spend some more time on that.
He's like, I'm not throwing you George Moore. You got the oil change light on your car. As you're listening to us right now, go to George Moore and get it.
Well, I gave you an alley-oop for George Moore.
I know. That's not bad. I got to figure this thing out.
Yes. No, dude, don't get me wrong. I've bought a car from George Moore. They're very, very good people over there. All right, South Carolina goes to Texas A&M. Is Jimbo in trouble? Starting to hear some rumblings about that. They need to start winning here, man. He's 4-3 right now.
Whenever you get the whole graphic every week of your record compared to the previous coach's record, who they fired and paid you a lot more, yeah, you're in trouble. Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough. You keep hearing about these buyouts. But all I see is $100 million, $200 million facilities still being built every single year at these facilities. Apparently, they have money to burn.
Yeah.
Right. So, because I don't think they need a fourth locker room facility in 6 years. So whatever Jimbo's buyout is, I'm sure there's some dude that hates Jimbo enough right now that's willing to write that check.
And the luster is completely off Shane Beamer in South Carolina. I mean, the last year...
I would be more patient with that.
Well, I'm not saying they're going to fire him, but you go from beating Tennessee and Clemson in November. I mean, they're 2-5.
Yeah, I would be a little bit more patient with Shane Beamer just because that's a different thing, man. South Carolina's it's a tough place to win.
He bothers me, man. He bothers me. And like post-game pressers
what
and
do you
stuff.
Mean?
He's always got 1,000 other people to blame besides himself.
No, he blames his players. I mean, after the Gator game.
Beamer does?
Yes.
Yeah, after the Gator game, he blamed his players. He literally pointed to the sheet and said, we called a blitz package on this play, and a guy fell down. That's literally what he said. And I'm like, dude, as a head coach,
that's
throwing your players under the bus.
That's a tough look. I was saying just simply because South Carolina is so tough, I'm not sure you can go and get somebody better for sure right now. But the Jimbo situation is hella interesting.
He's got the hottest seat in the country.
When he was the first one that had this massive buyout, right? And it's like, okay, if all of a sudden they got to pay this thing, does that change contracts? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think there's just a lot of different levels to the Jimbo thing.
The B word is when you know you're in trouble, too. When you start hearing buyout,
yep,
that's when you know you're in trouble.
Well, he better be living clean right now because they're going to be looking for any type cause they can to find.
Yes.
We got to go quick because I know you got to go, but I'll take Texas A&M. They're at home, and if South Carolina falls to 2-6, they are probably one of the biggest disappointments in the conference, if not the country.
I'll take that I may not have ever cared less about a game in my life than I do Texas A&M, South Carolina.
I mean, will I watch it? Probably. It'll give me something to do before Florida, Georgia.
Right, okay, fair enough.
And look,
I'll go with you. I'll go Texas
in
A&M.
April, May, and June, we're going to wish like hell we had South Carolina, Texas A&M to watch.
You ever find yourself doing that, though? Like watching some random game being like, why am I watching this?
Oh, I mean, I watched Liberty a couple nights ago.
Well, that was Western Kentucky, though. That was Austin Reed.
I watched UTEP and Sam Houston State.
Why?
I was dialed in.
What?
I was dialed in.
You probably had money on them.
I did.
Yeah, of course
okay. There's the okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I won $100. It was great.
Unbelievable. Mississippi State goes to Auburn. Two teams that are probably going to fight and claw to get to a bowl game. Auburn needs this one. They're 3-4.
Yeah, they both need this one. They both need this. I don't think either team had massive expectations for the season. Both new coaches, but you got to finish the year strong in the SEC, especially if you want to hold on to a job in recruiting. Auburn's recruiting pretty decently. So, I mean, Auburn probably needs this a little worse, but it's both important. I think Auburn takes this one.
Vandy goes to Ole Miss. Let me ask you a question. If Ole Miss wins out and finishes 11-1.
Well, that means they beat Georgia.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, okay. All right. Hypothetically, if they're 11-1 and do not win the West and a win over Georgia, would they have an argument for the playoff? Mm-hmm. If they don't win their division.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the more each week that goes by. Remember a couple weeks ago we were like, well, what if the SEC doesn't have anybody in? What if Georgia okay, well, that's kind of gone away.
Well, I think people forgot about Ole Miss after the Alabama game.
We still haven't had that Saturday where everything just goes crazy, though. That still hasn't happened, and it's
the best Saturday of the year.
It happens every single year. So I'm going to answer your question as in yes. If they go 11, and maybe that's the Saturday. Maybe the Saturday they play Georgia, Washington loses, and all this other kind of stuff happens, then yeah, I think there's definitely a path there. That Saturday is fantastic. It's better than Christmas Eve.
Well, when all the upsets happen?
Yes.
It's the committee's least favorite Saturday, but it's all of our favorite
Yeah,
Saturdays.
the world loves it.
All right, 2 teams that are probably out of the SEC East race. The loser of this game will definitely be out. Tennessee goes to Kentucky on Saturday night.
Tennessee's got to have this one. Tennessee's got it. I've been saying this all year. This is such a big year for Heupel, and letting that Alabama game go.
They got the business from the officials, man.
Regardless,
yeah.
Regardless, he had such a good year last year, and you got to stack that up with another 10 win. He still got Georgia too, so he's got Kentucky. He's still got Georgia. You can look up and they can be 8-4, and the goodwill that you had last year is largely gone.
Yeah,
he needs this one.
Yeah.
Really badly.
If you lose to Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, and Georgia a year after what you did last year, that would not be a good look.
No.
All right, that brings us to the cocktail party. First and foremost, Georgia is a 14.5-point favorite. Would you take Florida and the points?
No, I wouldn't.
Really?
But I'm going to say this. I don't think it's going to be like the beatdown. I think it's going to be a game that you're still watching midway through the third quarter. Maybe even start the fourth quarter because you're down 2 scores and have the ball. And, hey, if we score here, it's a 1-score game type thing.
I'll do lunch. 14.5.
Well, I don't really like to go to lunch, people, but I'll bring you lunch.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah. I'll bring you something from the dollar menu. Look, 14.5's a lot, right?
Sorry, nothing against you. I just don't like eating.
No, I get it. People think radio guys like to mingle and talk. I don't really like to do anything outside of the radio booth.
We may be the most closed off group of people in the world.
I like to hibernate.
That was the weirdest interaction about. It's just lunch, boys.
Yeah, well,
He's like, no, I don't like lunch.
I
lunch
do
is
agree.
Great. What's wrong with lunch?
I do agree with Denny that I don't really like going to lunch with people.
Well, then I feel like I got to go somewhere and eat a heavy lunch, and I'm not a heavy lunch guy.
Yeah.
If someone else is paying, you need to throw down. That's fair.
Or maybe we'll just go the route of that Eddie Murphy movie. What was it with Dan Aykroyd, and we'll just bet $1 on 14.5 for
That's
one
fine.
match
Let's do
stick.
that. Yeah, let's do that.
14.5's a lot, right?
I don't think so in college football.
No,
I really don't, man. I think it'll be a decent game. I just don't think. Man, listen, you've got Will Muschamp over there, and you've got Kirby Smart, and you've got an offense in Florida that we've been told is super simplistic. I don't know.
You know what, though?
That doesn't set up well for me.
Look, again, I don't think Georgia's going to lose the game. I'm going to pick Georgia to win. That South Carolina game was really interesting. And I know South Carolina's bad. Florida had 2 4th and 10s they had to convert. They had to get Spencer Rattler off the field. And they had to do all this with under 6 minutes to go down 10.
It's a great win.
And you win a game like that, and now you have 2 weeks to get ready for Georgia. If nothing else, there's got to be a lot of confidence coming out of that Gator football facility right now because of that.
Again, I'm not. I hate doing this show every year because it's here in Jacksonville and everybody pays attention and everybody thinks I'm a Gator hater now. They used to think I was a Gator homer. It's not that. It's just, man, the defense, the style defense that Georgia plays just does not set up well for Florida. It just doesn't.
Okay, hold on. Auburn and Vandy scored on Georgia. Scored a lot, actually. Vandy scored a lot on Georgia.
A lot?
Well, what were they? Were they plus 20? If Vandy puts 20 on anybody, I don't know if a vaunted defense.
When did they score that?
Well, the game, it was close in the third quarter, late third quarter.
Those weren't garbage time points.
No.
Okay. All right.
We'll see. On this.
We'll see. I just don't think Georgia's defense. I don't know. I think.
Hold on.
Here's the thought: is if I have the personnel to keep everything in front of me against Florida, and I can control the front seven, man, that's tough for me. That is a tough look. You're going to have to hit some big plays, and has Florida hit those big plays consistently?
Georgia's played 7 games, obviously, 7-0. They've allowed 20 points or more in 3 of those games. Mm-hmm. That is not the Georgia defense of last year. You'll at least grant me that.
Oh, no, I agree completely. I'm not saying that they're going to shut Florida out, but what I am saying is that this Georgia offense is pretty good. And I know Brock Bowers isn't there, but you're going to have to score over 30. You're going to have to. Georgia is going to score 30. I've watched them the last couple games. It's going to happen. So can you
for what
score
it's
30?
worth, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, They scored 24 against South Carolina and 27 against Auburn.
I'll put another. I will take you to lunch if Georgia don't score 30.
Florida, the Kentucky running back's still running, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other than Kentucky, though, and I guess South Carolina did score, so I can't say other than that. Florida shut down Tennessee, which was still a crazy defensive performance against Tennessee. My concern about this game is this. It's not so much Carson Beck, to be honest with you. I think Georgia is going to line up and run the ball down Florida's throat for some of this game.
Well, if they try to do that, then Florida's got a chance because now y'all are talking about old Georgia, which is where they started this year, and they can't do it this year.
Yeah, but Florida's rush defense is awful.
Well,
at least in the Utah game and Kentucky game.
And that's bad on bad. Who's better in their because Georgia's just not what they usually are running the ball. I'm telling y'all. They don't have that guy at running back that they have every single year. It doesn't look the same. It's not that same physical, like we're going to punish you, run the ball type of thing. They've had to throw to get them out of jams. Like that's what they've had to do. They've had to open up the offense to get them out of jams. I don't know, and I'm not trying to say that this is I just think that Georgia is hitting their stride, and I think what Florida has, you got to think. We're talking about all the helps on the way. Boardingham has started playing well. You got some things like that that's
Wilson's
going your way.
A dude.
Wilson that's the best one right there because Wilson is a great example. Next year, maybe you have 3 of those, right? And it becomes a matchup problem.
Well, Ricky Pearsall this year's a dude too.
Georgia can handle 1 or 2 of those guys.
Yeah,
right. You got to find the guys, and that's kind of what happened with Tennessee last year. Is they had Hyatt, right? And Georgia pressed him, played him over the top as well with the safety, and they could do absolutely nothing. Right, so I don't know. Maybe I'm letting what I've seen the last couple of years cloud my judgment on this from a Gator perspective, but it seems to me that this got this Kentucky thing going on, where the style of defense. By the way, Kentucky and Georgia run the exact same defense, where the style of defense just is tough for Billy Napier.
And look, that's fair. Georgia to me is going to win the game. I think this is Florida's best shot in the last 3 years. I still don't think they're going to win. Quickly as we wrap up, if Florida were to win and pull the upset, 2 or 3 things that absolutely have to happen on Saturday.
They got to get turnovers, and they can't. They got to win the turnover battle. They have to control the clock, so that meaning they have to run the ball well, right? And they have to hit a couple big plays.
And the turnover battle, they probably need to win by like 2 or 3.
Either that, or like. Convert a couple 4th downs, something like that.
Can I ask something really fast? Because I know you've said multiple times, and I agree with you, that Florida needs to hit some big plays offensively. Yeah. But you're saying Georgia's going to make you drive the ball down the field. If you're Mertz and Napier studying the game plan this week, what are some of your options maybe to hit a big play?
Well, you go back and
his
look.
His name's Eugene Wilson.
Well, I mean, you go back and you look, and
but Eugene Wilson down the field,
yes, big plays have been hit on Georgia in that 18 to 25 yard range, and then it's been run out, right? Either for score or for another 20, 25 yards. So there's
slip a tackle,
right? Well, there's things that they do defensively that if they're not buttoned up tight and you have the right play call, you can hit them in a transition point. And we don't want to get too technical, but there are those things. You just got to be dialed because those opportunities will present itself. And you just got to be dialed in and ready to hit them. I think 37-20 is what I'm thinking. That's what I've thought all week. But I do think it's a good game in the 3rd quarter.
Special teams will be important. By the way, we don't have enough time to get into this, but when did we find out that Florida's got the best kicker in the country?
Right?
Where did that come from?
I know.
He didn't even start at the beginning of the year. All of a sudden, they bring this guy in, he's like automatic.
It's now that you said that, he's going to miss 4 on Saturday.
Well,
but yes, you're right.
He's absolutely incredible.
How in the world did Mahalik win that job in the offseason?
I don't know. That
makes no sense.
Bad, because Trey Smack legitimately might be the best kicker.
He's unbelievable, man.
Just name alone, he should have won the job.
Yeah. That is Graham Marsh. That is Denny Thompson. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. George Moore Chevrolet.
You didn't give me a score.
Oh, I mean, okay. Well, Florida's going to win, or I'm sorry, Georgia's going to win, but it will not be by 14.5. I'll go, you said 37-20?
Yep.
I think this will be a little less scoring than that. I'll go 31-23, Georgia.
Oh, okay. We got a game.
I'll go 31-23. Now,
Graham, quick, score.
35-24.
Okay, we got a game.
Yeah, I like the points with Florida.
Did you say Gators?
No.
Did you
Gators with the points. Gators with the points.
Now, again, when I say 31-23, Could that be 31-16?
I got you.
Florida scores
Yeah,
with
yeah,
90
yeah.
seconds to go, doesn't get the onside kick. But I do think it's an 8-10-point game. I think Florida, I would take the 14.5 and the Gators. At the end of the day, it's going to be awesome. The cocktail party seems to matter a little something. And what a weekend, by the way. Not only that, Jaguars and Steelers on Sunday, and what is a huge game in the AFC. So it is going to be a fantastic weekend here in Jacksonville. We'll be back to recap Florida and look ahead to Arkansas next week. Black uniforms. I know Sam Pittman's your guy. He's probably in trouble out there. He was
Yeah, a
already
little
fired as offensive coordinator.
Yep.
So that'll be an interesting topic next week. That is Denny Thompson. That is Graham Marsh. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. Thank you for watching and listening to Gator Bytes, 1010XL.com and the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page.